and really studied the organization over the last few weeks as I really thought about what makes this organization so special. Now, for the last 20 years, my work has been in global poverty alleviation. How many of you, by show of hands, has heard of Kiva.org? Okay, so this is it's a nonprofit organization, started 20 years ago, and we scour the planet for high-impact NGOs that have market-based solutions to poverty alleviation. And in this process of, visiting with organizations, we've been funded by Gates and Rockefeller Foundation, all these guys, but also just visiting low-income households, going inside people's huts, seeing that they sleep without mattresses, letting your heart be bruised by the injustice that is poverty. You start to get a feel for, there's many NGOs out there, but what makes an NGO effective? And what was really, really special is learning how special Ekal is. Now you've heard about it tonight, but I just want to offer my view here. And there's 3 reasons. The first is, as I do the calculations, it's an exceptionally high impact per dollar. And when we give money, we really ought to be rational, not just emotional about it, because it matters. And giving smartly really matters. And you want to make the highest marginal impact per dollar. The stakes are that high. And what do I love about Ekal? I think they're at the impact trifecta. Okay, it's just 3 simple things. It's simple to say, very hard to do. They reach people who are most vulnerable, who are at, villages at the end of the dirt road where there's no government school, as we've heard, typically. They deliver positive outcomes. So if you actually read through the papers, there's third-party evaluators who looked at Ekal schools and the educational outcomes there versus the local government schools. And you see actually great evidence suggesting higher impact. And then of course there's locations where there is no government school. And then finally, the efficiency here is remarkable. 400,000 volunteers, an organization based on Seva. The statistic there is for every $1 donated to Ekal, you're levering about $8 of volunteer labor for free. So it is just an incredible impact per dollar. So I think that's very special, and you don't see this very often, not at this scale. Now the next thing is, I really appreciate how Ekal develops the whole person. Here you can see in the picture here, this is a classroom where the students are learning meditation. And 20 years ago, I was volunteering at the Gandhi Ashram, at the Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad. They have a few NGOs there. And I was talking to a mentor of mine. He started an organization called ESI, Environmental Sanitary Institute. It's basically building toilets all across rural India. Because at the time, there were more cell phones in India. This is 20 years ago than there were toilets, right? And so he had spent, his name Ishwar Bhai, Ishwar Kaka, he had spent much time in the villages. And I said, Kaka, what is the problem? What is the biggest problem in India's villages? And he said, it's addiction. The devil resides in idle minds. And because either there's not enough education or there's not enough employment and opportunities, in that idle time, people turn to vices, drinking, drugs, sometimes domestic violence. It's tough, it breaks families apart. So poverty is not just, not having enough calories in the household. It's multidimensional. And this was something that really opened my eyes. So when I thought about Ekal's work at developing the insides of people. This is this phrase. Is in the yoga studio I go to in San Francisco. It says, "No yoga, no peace. No yoga, no peace." I love that Ekal does this kind of values-based transformational work. I think it's very special. The third thing we just saw with the youth panel, but not many organizations would actually create this kind of opportunity for connection back to India, especially for the second and third generation. my son and my nephew are here, what is their connection going to be to India, to this motherland that many of you folks from the first generation have a visceral heart sense for? And I think any organization that allows young people to reconnect with India, to see, how lucky we are to be born into the kind of this birth lottery of sorts, this kind of privilege, and to have purpose, to find purpose, to be on purpose, that can be really powerful. A few years ago, Time magazine labeled the young generation, how many of you saw this cover? The me generation. Because the kids are, they got the cell phones. They're born with cell phones, and the kind of teen, depression, unhappiness, there's bullying, it's a tough age to be a young person. Can you imagine for the older, I'm 50, but even the older generation, thank God we didn't have to grow up with this kind of technology all around us. It was just, I don't think life was meant to move this fast. And so it's creating all sorts of things, from depression to narcissism, etc. Well, what's the antidote? How do you inoculate young people against that? I think it's service. It's being on purpose. The young people who spoke here, the thing I feel so good about is when you're on purpose. I honestly think, what did Gandhiji say? To find yourself, you can lose yourself in the service of others. I think that is one of the greatest gifts that this organization gives. So many ways to plug in and find purpose. All right, so I want to just end with this thing, because I've been thinking a lot about my parents who are here, my kakas and masas and masis and uncles and aunties who I've known. You all many of you are the first generation here. In fact, raise your hand if you're part of the first generation to come from India here. Okay. I don't know if you all have heard of Tom Brokaw, the NBC nightly news guy, right? He wrote this book, The Greatest Generation. Did you guys see this? And he wrote about the generation that served in World War II of Americans, and the quiet sacrifice that they made. And he celebrates, we have to think about who we're grateful to, right? Had they not done that sacrifice, perhaps everyone in the US would be speaking German, would be under Nazi rule. I don't think you'd have a room full of Indians here. And it would be a very different world, and we're very grateful for their sacrifice. And I've been thinking about the first generation as you all age, and I don't know if we, in the younger generation, and then, my children's generation, I don't know if we celebrate you all enough. Your sacrifice, your generosity, your example. But you all probably remember these aerogram letters that you'd write in the 70s. And now we're here in this room giving back so much more to India. But I want you all to know that I think the story will be written about you all, the first generations that bravely came over here. It's not easy in 2 languages, everything you all had to do. And to, what is the phrase? Blessed are those who plant trees under whose shade they'll never sit. You've done that for me, you're doing that for my children, our children, and many, many generations. But with Ekal, you're donating to basically educate kids, the future of India. You will never meet them. You'll never sit under that shade. I think it's very, very, the example is powerful, and for that, I say thank you. So thank you for tonight.
Wow, what a wonderful message from such a powerful initiative. Thank you very much. And guess what? I have just been told it's his birthday today. So, it doesn't matter which nationality we are from. What do we do on birthdays? We sing happy birthday. So let's make it special for the special gentleman here. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Premal. Happy birthday to you.
Premal.